Hi, welcome to another one of my videos. Today we're going to be working on our pinhole negatives and turning them into duotone positives using Adobe Photoshop. So we're combining a traditional process with a digital process to create some new and interesting work. So you're going to go to open. Now we need to find where we downloaded the document we're using because we're all working on the same thing. So go down to where it says documents or downloads. It's probably in downloads, right? Because that's what we just did. And you should see it there, right? It says pinhole demo. You guys see that? All right, so click on pinhole demo, and then down here it says open. When you click on that, it's going to open this file in Photoshop. Now, if we just double-clicked it from the Downloads folder, it's not going to open in Photoshop, which is why we had to do that extra step. Go to Photoshop first, then File, Open, and then open it from your Downloads folder. Okay? These were all scanned a couple of years ago. These are just projects that people did with their shoebox. What the goal here is of this project is we're going to take this negative, which you made with the shoebox, we're going to turn it into a positive. We're going to fix the levels, which is another word for fixing how dark or light it is. And then we're going to make it a positive and add color to it. So it's a short, easy, quick intro to Photoshop, and we're doing this with pictures that we took with the pinhole technique. So step number 3 says use the rectangular marquee tool to select the pinhole you want to work on. So the rectangular marquee tool is right here under the Move tool, and it looks like a square with dotted lines. We haven't used this tool yet, so everybody go ahead and click on it once, the rectangular marquee tool in the toolbar. And we're going to use the one in the top right. So what I want you guys to do is take your cursor with the rectangular marquee tool, and I want you to drag a box around just that image. So what we're going to be doing here is actually pulling that image from this page and making it into a new document. Now these things, once you drag that and let go, you're going to notice there are these little moving lines that go around here. We call those marching ants. So when you have marching ants, what it's telling you is that is the area you have selected to do something to. Okay? I'll show you a quick way of how this works. I don't want you to follow along with me. Don't do it because it's not necessary. If I take a paintbrush and I take the color red, and I go like this and I start coloring, I can color all over my screen, right? Which is terrible. I go out of the lines. Using a selection allows me to do this. So if I select an area, now when I take a paintbrush, it only affects that area. You see that? So it only says, okay, you're doing whatever and being messy, but you're only affecting that one area. So we've selected this one piece. Step number 4 says to go to Edit and then click Copy. So once you have this selection, I want you to go to the top of the screen and go to Edit and choose Copy. Nothing happens. You just copied it to the memory on the computer. Step number 5 says to click File, New, and OK. So let's do that together. File, New, and then OK. So we selected the area, then we went to File, New, OK, and what it did was it made a new document that is exactly the right size. This is the size of this little picture right here, which you're going to see in just a second. The next step is to go to Edit and go to Paste. So after you go File, New, OK, go to Edit and click Paste. And now what you've done is you've pasted that photo onto a new document, right? You're going to do this 3 or 4 times for each one of your pinhole projects. And once you do one of these, the rest are going to happen really fast. So we copied it, we made a new document, and we pasted it. All right, let's go ahead and close this one. We don't need this one anymore, so I click back over here, and I make this go away. And where it says save, I don't want to save it. Don't save it. It's fine. It's just I wanted to borrow this one image from there. Step number 7 says click layer and then flatten image. Now before you just do that and click on it, I want you to know what's going to happen. Right now what's going on in layers is we have 2 layers. We have layer 1 with our image on it. We have background layer which has nothing on it. I don't want 2 layers, I only want 1. So what we're going to do is go to the top where it says layer and then choose flatten image, which is almost on the bottom. And when you flatten the image, it makes it now 1 layer. So now it's just a background layer, there's nothing else. You see it squished it down. The next step, if your image, number 8, is turned on its side, use image rotation, and turn it 90 degrees one way or the other. So what that means is you look at the top again, and you go to image, and then you go to image rotation. Because our photo is turned on its side, we want to rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise, CCW. Counterclockwise will twist it to the left, and now it looks the way that it was supposed to look. Image rotation, rotate 90 degrees, CCW. We're going to create something called a levels adjustment layer, and what a levels adjustment layer is going to do is adjust the tones in the image. It's going to make it darker or lighter depending on what we want to happen. So let's all find the levels adjustment layers, and those are down here at the bottom of your layers palette. You can see here there's this circle that's half white and half gray. If I click on this, it gives me different options. There's lots of different kinds of adjustment layers. We are going to add the one that says levels. And now what you're going to notice is it just produced another layer, which is called a levels adjustment layer. And what this allows us to do is to adjust, again, the darks and lights. Now this thing right here is called a histogram. All right, so now what you have is a profile of what looks like a mountain range, right? We've got a big mountain right here, kind of in the middle. We've got a little mountain over here. What this represents, it's a graph of all the dark and light pixels in an image. So what this graph is telling me is that there are some dark pixels, there are a lot of medium pixels, and there's some white ones. Now watch what happens when I move these 3 sliders right here. You see these 3 little guys right here? These are the sliders that you don't eat. They're not the White Castle ones. They're the ones that adjust your image. So if I drag this gray one toward the right, everything gets darker. My midtones get darker. I don't think I want to do that. I'm going to probably lighten them just a little bit. This image was pretty well balanced. If this mountain is right in the middle, that means you have an even distribution of dark and light pixels. I could take the black one and drag it in a little bit, but I don't really need any more dark pixels. And then if I wanted to make more light ones, I can pull this in a little bit. So it says click on the background layer to activate it. What does that mean? Here's what that looks like. If I look in my layers palette, I can see I have a background layer and I have levels 1. If I want to activate the background layer, I need to click on the word background. Alright, so what we're going to do next, step number 2, this is the cool part. We're going to go to the top of the screen. After we click on the background layer, we're going to go to image, we're going to go to adjustments, and we're going to invert. Invert. What happens when you invert it? Oh my goodness, look at what just happened. It looks like an actual photograph. It doesn't look like a negative anymore. The sun is now the light and the shadows are now dark. Yeah. You need to click back on the levels adjustment layer to readjust the tones in the image. So what happens a lot of times is we adjust it, the darks and lights, and then when we turn it into a positive, it doesn't look good. So let's go ahead and click right here where it says levels 1. Click on that levels adjustment layer, and now you can readjust the tones in the image. Maybe you don't want as much of a highlight. Maybe you want to darken the midtones now. Maybe you want more shadows. So we could drag this one in, we could drag this one over. Go ahead and move those around. You're not going to break anything. You're just moving the tones around to see what looks good to you. If it looks too dark, then move the sliders. If it looks too light, move the sliders. You can endlessly go back to your levels adjustment layer and readjust the tones in the image. You're going to do this for almost every photograph you take into Photoshop. You're going to want to move the levels around to darken and lighten the image. Now, you guys know this because you've been in the darkroom. When you're in the darkroom, this is a really hard thing to do. because you got to go in there and make a test strip, make a print, come out, make an adjustment, make a test strip, make a print, make a test strip, make a print. You're doing these adjustments in a fraction of a second. You're just going, bloop, I want a light one. Oh, now I want a dark one, right? That would take hours to do in a darkroom situation. So we're going to go image mode. Then we're going to change this to grayscale. Image mode, grayscale. And it's going to ask me, are you sure you want to discard the color information? And we're going to say, yes, discard the color information. That's what I was wanting to do. We're getting rid of all the color that was there. And now the image is completely black and white. It might not look like it changed very much, but it changed a little bit. Next thing, we're going to go to image and go to mode. And now we're going to choose duotone. You have to go to grayscale before you can go to duotone. That's why we didn't go from RGB straight to duotone. You're going to go grayscale, and now we're going to choose duotone. So a duotone means that there are two colors. A monotone means there's one. So right now we have one choice for an ink color, and that's black. If we change this type to duotone, which is what I want you guys to do next, duotone, now we have two ink colors. The first one's black, the second one's white. Let's change this black color to a color that you like. So click on the black box, and you get this thing called the color picker. Now there is a rainbow here of color, so you can go up and down the rainbow, choose the color hue that you like, and then you have to click inside the larger box to figure out how dark or light you want this color to be. So if I go with a dark green, it looks like that. If I go with a light green, you can see those changes happening. I'm going to stick with a sort of dark-ish green color. You don't have to choose green. You can choose whatever color you want. And then we're going to click OK. And now we need to change the white box. So what happens when you change the white box? You want to pick a contrasting color. So if I have green and a pinkish color, it's going to look like that when you mix those two together. I could try blue, I can try another different kind of green, I can try yellow. So it's mixing these two colors together, putting them on the tones, and it's giving you this duotone thing where it's mixing the two together. I kind of like the bluish green, so I'm going to go with that. What you're seeing here on the bottom where it says overprint colors is it's showing you what happens when it's mixing these two together. Everything that's light is that color, everything that's dark is that color, and everything in between is on that scale. And you can see that in the image. Now if you try to click OK, it's going to say this nasty thing to you. All inks must be specified. All ink must have a name. So you click OK and you're like, oh, I don't know, what can I not do this? You have to name ink 2. Ink 1 is already called black. Ink 2 is called nothing. So I'm going to call it, green-ish. The next step says to crop the image. Maybe you want to crop the image to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit better composition. So I'm going to show you how to do this. If I select part of this image, like let's say I think this will be more interesting if I make the composition look like that. I'm doing this thing again with the rectangular marquee with the marching ants. If I now go to the top of the screen and go to image and go to crop, it throws away everything outside of that, making the image look a little bit different. I don't want you guys to do that. You don't need to crop it that small. You may not need to crop it at all, but that's how you do it. You select the area you want to keep, and then you go to image crop. Now to deselect, there's a shortcut. The shortcut to deselect, to get rid of these little marching ants, is Command D. You hold Command and you press the letter D, and that stands for deselect. The next part says sharpening for print. Sharpening for print basically means let's make this a little bit less blurry. So you go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. You choose Unsharp Mask, and then you change these values. It gives you some suggested values of 125, 1.8, and 0. I'm going to change that a little bit to make it an exaggerated version of that. You see how sharp that becomes? Before it looked like this, like you need glasses, and then it looks like that, like, oh, it's high definition. So sharpening is just going to really push the edge contrast to make it look like it's more in focus. You have to keep in mind you did take this picture with a shoebox, so how focused do you expect it to be? All right, we're going to go ahead and click OK after we go to Unsharp Mask. And then you would basically be done. So what you're doing here is you're going to do this to all of the pinholes that you scan. So what we're going to do now is hurry up and save this before the bell rings. We're going to go to File, we're going to go to Save As. Go to File, go to Save As. You're going to put this on your desktop. So on the left side of the screen here, make sure you choose Desktop. Yeah, you might have to click this little down arrow right here. See this guy? Now you can see Desktop on the left. Click on Desktop.
Thanks for watching. Like, there's like a little button that they put on the laptop or something, and then they say click it, and then you can never even miss a video.
That's if you subscribe.